This is great. We're standing this year, which is nice. I appreciate standing. So you cannot introduce me as Harvard Zach ever again. Because that's not, I don't know.
I said hard luck.
Hard luck, Zach. That's actually a much better description. Yeah, so I was trying very hard to not think of what I was going to say up here at the outset in order to actually say something. And your comment about the watch was actually interesting because it made me think about the two kinds of time that the Greeks had. Right? There was chronos, which was the time on your clock, and there was kairos. And kairos was a different kind of time. Right? It was the time that occurred after a ritual had been invoked, before the ritual ended. It was a time during war. It was a time during lovemaking, right? When the actual energy of the temporal duration is such that the temporal duration itself feels different. And so Chronos is a god, and we are living under the realm of that god now as a culture, broadly speaking. Right? So the title of the book that is coming out in like a week. It should have been on the table if there was a problem with the printer. It's called Education in a Time Between Worlds. And this notion of being in a time between worlds is precisely the reason that the think tank's so essential. Because it's not that there's some conversation happening somewhere else where they're figuring out what to do. That's not the case. And I can tell you that it was frightening when I learned that as I got higher into the echelons of consulting and realized, oh my God, like it's just us. Like there's not adults somewhere, you know, like there are not grown-ups somewhere actually pulling the strings. And so what that means is that we're living in a time without any actual leadership and without any actual vision. Now we have pseudo-vision, right? We have people certainly claiming to have vision. But it's much more likely that the actual frameworks that will recongeal the world on the other side of Chronos, when we step back into something that looks like orderly time, the group that will do that's not on the radar. They can't be. Because the radar is still saying the world's fine. The world exists. Right? Check your watch. Be at a meeting on time. Right? I've never worn a watch. Just so you know. That's why I'm not actually a Harvard Zach. I'm in disguise right now. People who know me, this beard, and it's a disguise. Because I'm living outside of time. Because we have to. And there's reasons in my life that was forced on me. But there's reasons that it's a blessing. Because the degree to which you think that it's just time, and you don't realize that the time itself is, like the times are changing, right? Bob Dylan, right? The time itself is actually changing, that we're in a pregnant time, which means every speech act matters in a different way. Right? Every gesture, like we're creating the future world out of every motion. We're not actually determined by the past in the same way that we would have been, say, in the 60s. It's hard for the boomers to hear that. This is actually a more radical transformation than the 1960s. It's more like the transformation out of feudalism into capitalism. It's more what it's like. It's more like the move out of pre-modernity into modernity. And remember, in the pre-modern world, God was everywhere. God was everywhere. God was in everything. The doctrine of signatures, God was everywhere. In modernity, there is no God. God is gone. The world that we are entering into is a world in which God is everywhere again. And that's one of the moves that we're making at the center, is to start thinking of ways to use language so that that's clear. And if God's everywhere, it means it's in the human. And it also means it's in the superstorms, right? And the economic collapses, and the eyes of the stranger and the refugee. So that's what your watch made me think about, and it ended up being a quite nice way to frame what we're doing. That we're working in a time outside of time, in that the power under the realm of Chronos. So we can leave our watches at the door, but we'll try to be also on time. So, thank you guys.